So this is a story about probably the worst employee that I have ever worked with. And it took everything in my willpower to not for my head to not explode. So I share this next story to not only vent, but to also share how awful some of the things trans people go through at work simply for being trans. Yes, I will definitely vent and try to enjoy some of that catharsis, but the real point here is to share an experience that can hopefully be used to make spaces at least a little bit better for trans people. I've worked with some pretty awful people over the years, whether rude, incompetent, or both, and most of us probably have. But he was especially bad because many of the work issues that we had stemmed from the issue that he didn't like working with or for a trans woman. And he also reported to me. Yep, I was his boss. You know, he did a lot of things that probably your average not so great employee did. You know, I go by his cubicle, he's frequently on his phone playing games. You know, when I did find him doing work, he was frequently in the lab doing work that was never assigned to him. He'd come up with his own projects. He frequently got mad when I did assign him work to do. Heaven forbid that I give him work to do at a job that he's being paid to do work. He's also just extremely unreceptive to feedback, which I think a lot of people struggle with that, but that can make things especially difficult when they're not doing a great job and you have to give them feedback, and then giving them feedback just makes things even worse. It's a really volatile situation to work with. He did eventually get fired, but I had the wonderful experience of people not taking me seriously, of people not really feeling that my complaints were real, of essentially being gaslit, if you're familiar with that term. This happened for months. And was I not taken seriously because I was normally easygoing? I think I could put up with a lot, which isn't a good reason to not take my complaints seriously. I think it's a reason that you should take my complaints more seriously, since it has to be bad for me to complain. Or was it that maybe women are not taken as seriously in stereotypically male-dominated professions like engineering? Who knows? Was it also the fact that I was trans? Who knows? It's hard to really parse all this together in retrospect. But, you know, I was having issues with an employee, and it was really hard to get people on my side, and really feeling all alone in this situation. Something many of us could probably relate to when having shitty work relationships. There's a big miscommunication problem here, to say the least, and I spent many months trying different solutions, like using a variety of different scheduling softwares to assign tasks, to make schedules, sending tasks and emails, you know, working with him to put tasks directly on his Outlook calendar, making structured task lists that he could either, you know, put in his own computer, that I could email to him, that we could print out and put in his cubicle, whatever, put them in the lab. I met with him regularly to review his work and what he needed to do, which, I mean, is pretty normal thing I did with all my interns too. I even tried some more hands-off approaches of just like, here's your work for the week, have at it. Because I mean, I don't want to micromanage. I don't like being micromanaged, and most people don't, so I didn't really want to turn into that, but I had to try it at some points because there's just so many things that I tried that were not working. You know, I provided feedback on his work through emails, feedback in person. I set concrete deadlines after more flexible deadlines didn't work. You know, assigned stuff in our own personal meetings, assigned work in team meetings. You know, I had him do lab work by himself. I had him do lab work with me, lab work with my interns, lots of different things. And yes, I had several interns to manage at the same time during this, and yes, he also delegated some of his work to interns without telling me, which just blows my mind how he still struggled to get some of his work done when he wasn't even doing all of it. And then on top of that, he wasn't receptive to feedback, so talking to him about his work performance issues, either in email or in person, it was usually a volatile situation where he would throw a temper tantrum if I said anything remotely that could be seen as criticism. Like, this is something you need to improve in your report. How dare you? Your conclusions don't support the experiment. how is that a bad thing to say? Even had him report on some tasks to another one of my coworkers, something I talked out with this coworker because, he could eventually see that these problems were serious. And just delegating some of the tasks so A, he could work with somebody that he liked more, and B, I didn't have to work with him as much, and it would hopefully be at least a temporary solution to make things easier for everyone. And then things got even worse. He then posted some nasty things about me publicly on Facebook, and essentially saying that he thought I was an awful boss. He didn't tag me or use my name, but it was clearly about me, confirmed by several other coworkers who talked to him and saw the post. And some of my coworkers showed that to me. All these solutions I tried, and I was still the problem. I was still the problem in his eyes. And he never once offered solutions that would work for him. It's that common theme of like, all right, let's try something new. And he's like, that doesn't work or that won't work. Okay, fine. Let's try something else. And eventually gets to a point, okay, what does work for you? And that conversation just never happened when I tried to start that conversation. So after that Facebook post, I called him into my office. And then he got mad at me for bringing that up to him. He got mad at me for issuing a disciplinary report for this. Because, I don't know, call me crazy, but I don't think that's acceptable to badmouth your coworkers, badmouth your company on public social media while on company time when you're supposed to be doing work. There's just so many red flags here. And, if you got caught doing stupid stuff, how is the person who catches you the one to blame? And then he complains to HR about me for giving him this disciplinary report. It just continues to blow up. And I'm worried about my job at this point because he's talking to HR, and I'm worried that in some crazy world, they may believe him and side against me. Thankfully, I had an amazing track record at that company, and they knew that he was blowing smoke, essentially. They trusted my side, thankfully. The CEO essentially just said, like, this is stupid. Can we just end this? And I'm like, yes, please. I would love to end this. I agree. This has been stupid for months. And then the CEO came to the office, asked to meet with both of us. So we had a meeting privately, just the three of us, asked each of us to take a turn saying, okay, what do we think the underlying issue is here in this work relationship? I went first and I cited performance issues, all things that were actually happening, like refusing to do some work, missing deadlines or turning in things late, refusing to make any edits after providing feedback on reports, and even just outright working on completely unrelated projects, causing a lot of projects to be stalled. And then it was his turn. And he stated that I talked about being trans too much. He literally said this, and it took everything in my willpower to not, for my head to not explode out of just, pure astonishment and also, hate fire brewing within me. He stated that I also talked about politics too much, which I know for a fact I had maybe talked about politics with him once or twice, and it was only in passing reference to the fact that I was running for office. Because I, told that to a couple other people, and he happened to be there, and that was it. And I never considered him a safe person. Everything that I said before, you could probably guess that I wasn't close friends with this guy. It was purely a work relationship. So I wouldn't have told him anything about my trans identity. He knew I was trans, obviously. I didn't tell him anything about that. I never discussed politics with him one-on-one. Yeah, but instead of ever bringing these issues up with me, he decided to now bring them up to the CEO. And he closed with saying that he couldn't work with me because I'm trans. And I'm just like, how is this even a legitimate excuse? But part of me is still worried, my CEO, he's super conservative. He's probably not going to see this as a huge problem. After that meeting, the CEO met with me privately, just the two of us, and he told me The problem was clearly not me, and the problem was not fixable. He told me to do what I could to salvage the relationship, but alluded to the fact that he wouldn't be here long. He was on my side, and I appreciated that. But the CEO only really saw those performance issues, which is why I focused on that, because attacking the person and not their actual performance, which is really what's being evaluated at work, is not really going to do any good. But I think those discrimination issues didn't really register. And things didn't really move forward in terms of him getting fired until I had actually brought up to one of the other people on the, higher up management board who I'm still really good friends with. Rick, if you're watching this, thank you for always being supportive, and hope I get to see you soon when all this crazy stuff in the world is over with. But thank you for supporting me. That's really only when things were elevated in terms of him actually eventually getting fired, is when somebody actually was like, oh yeah, that's discrimination and that shouldn't happen. But it's like the work performance was never an issue. I'm just like, can we not? This is so exhausting. This happened for nearly a year. I shared all of this not just to vent. And I'm very thankful that I came out unscathed after the fact. It was hell for that year. I dreaded going to work, to have to work with that person, and that is something I wish upon no one. And it feels good to know that, like, I survived that and got through, and it was a really great experience in learning of, like, different ways to try to manage certain employees, and also realizing that I did everything in my power and it still didn't work out, that I did not fail in any way, but it still hurt to have somebody say such horrible things about me and say them publicly and share them with other people and never directly confront me about it. But I also wanted to share this to, again, share the kind of shit that we as trans people deal with just for being trans. This kind of shit that we shouldn't have to put up with. This kind of shit that is oftentimes not even seen as discrimination. How a clearly awful employee can put my job in jeopardy just because he didn't want to work with me as a trans person was almost seen as a valid complaint. And I say almost because that was the case in my case. And that is not the case for so many other people, where so many people have been fired just for simply existing while being trans. I'm fortunate that a lot of my coworkers were eventually on my side, but that's because I was a really good employee, not necessarily because a lot of them supported the fact that I'm trans, which is fucked up in its own right. It was really nice to share all that because, I feel like now I can more so put that behind me because there's not a whole lot of people I've shared with about that. I seriously hope that he has grown a lot since this experience. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. What are your reactions to this story? Can you relate in any ways? Have you had any similar experiences at work? Maybe you've had some good experiences at work. Those are always welcome to be shared too, to help balance out some of the shit in the world. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Tipsy and I love you all so, so very much, and hope that you're staying happy, safe, and healthy during this tough time as much as you can. And remember, if you have not done so already, please give this a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and that notification bell. Bye for now. I also want to say here that, as I am a bit worried about posting this from the sense of, like, what's gonna happen if this person sees this? But at the same time, I'm still going through posting this anyway because people deserve to be called out when they repeatedly do stupid, shitty things. Especially when they repeatedly do stupid, shitty things and don't think they're doing anything wrong. They deserve to be called out because how else will people ever learn? How else will people ever change?